So in this session, we'll talk about vision statements. We're talking with Rabbi Pinney and Rabbi Helana Herman of Raleigh, North Carolina. And let's just jump right in. Rabbi, why is it so important for the husband to be involved in the vision statement? And then we'll talk more about what the vision statement is.
So it's a great question. Very often, but often it's the woman who is, I guess we could say, the keeper of the relationship or more involved in the relationship more than the man. But it doesn't mean that the man should not be involved. It's absolutely vital that the man understand how important it is that he is a co-creator of the relationship. You know, if you have two people in the rowboat and only one person is rowing, and the other person is just taking it easy, either it'll take longer to get where they need to get to, or the person rowing may just give up. And so it really is important that the husband really be fully engaged. I mean, look, face it. I mean, you made a commitment, you know, whether it's from the ksuba, there are commitments that a husband makes to his wife, and just a general commitment of a binyan adayad. You know, we think about in davening where we say, that Hashem is commanding you today. It says that every day it should be like it's brand new. That's how we should view our relationship with Hashem. Well, the truth is that's how we should view our relationship with our spouse as well. And so it's really vital for a marriage and for the relationship to not just be ordinary, but to really be extraordinary, that both parties are fully engaged. And I guess I can add as well that sometimes the husband might be more engaged than the wife. So it's really vital that both of them be fully engaged and committed to really making this marriage extraordinary.
You mentioned the word vision. Can you talk about what a vision is and what a vision statement is?
So what I was going to say is that we call this creating a relationship vision or co-creating a relationship vision, and there will be statements that are made in this vision. But something else I wanted to bring up before we go there is that I was speaking to a Lubavitcher Rav, and he was talking to me about how in the olden days, marriage was very different because it was a survival. We were more in survival mode, and the marriage was successful and happy if the husband kept the family safe and food on the table. And we are in America, and we have freedom, and we are in an abundance mentality society. And so now it's actually a positive thing, but it takes more tools, and that is that we expect more. Everyone expects more out of marriage. We want our husband to be our emotional friend and there to help us with the kids, and sometimes the wife works, and so there's a lot more to it now, and it's a lot different, and we expect a lot more, and we can have it, but we need tools to accomplish that.
Right. That's right. Actually, I just read recently that on Erev Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbeim would make sure to spend time with their Rebbetzin. And again, think about it. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah, and it's everything that's going on, and all the spiritual things that are going on in preparation for Rosh Hashanah and everything else. And yet, that is specifically the time that the Rebbeim felt it was very, very important to spend time with their Rebbetzin.
So what's the definition in your mind of what a relationship vision is?
So a vision is dreaming, in a sense, of the ideal relationship and how to get to that place. Because obviously, without a vision, you can't get what you're looking for, and you can't get to where you want to get to. Think about Shabbos Bereshis. Hashem had a vision for the world, and then Hashem went about creating all of the necessary elements in the world in order for that vision to be realized. Obviously, when we get into the car, we don't just drive. We set the GPS. We know where we want to get to, and we have to create a method of getting there. Building a building, the architect needs to have plans. Okay, how are we going to put the things that we need, in the building for it to work?
Right. And as I was saying before, not every family has the same tradition, if you want to call it. So you might think that it's normal and natural that in your family, this is our example, Pinney and I have an example. When I got married to Pinney, I just assumed that he was going to do the grilling if we were going to buy a grill. And he was looking at me like I was insane because he thought I was going to grill because in his family, his mother stood outside and grilled, and in my family, my father did. And so we had this grill, and neither one of us wanted to, participate. Even though we wanted to eat the food, grilled food, we didn't want to do it. Nobody's a mind reader, and we all come from different places. And so it's really important to, that's just one example of the grilling. But another one is there might be a family that's very punctual. So one spouse came from a family that everybody was always on time, and the other spouse came from a family that loved being late. They just were more relaxed, and they didn't have a problem with coming late. So if you don't have a vision for what this couple, you're going from your home of the nuclear family where you came from, and now you're co-creating a new family, and you need to have a vision for what you really want.
Yeah, and also, we talk about Shabbos Chazon, and when Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev says that Shabbos Chazon is Hashem's vision of showing us the third Beis Hamikdash. Well, the truth of the matter is that the Jewish home is a Mikdash Ma'at. It's a mini Mikdash. And so just as Hashem has the vision and shows us the vision on Shabbos Chazon of the third Beis HaMikdash, we also need a vision in our relationship to make sure that we are on the same page of where we want to go, obviously how to get there in the relationship.
Something that excites me very much is the new studies of the brain, the scientific studies that are coming out on the brain. So cool. And I'm going to just give you one example. I'm not an expert in it, but I'll just tell you from my findings. I was introduced to a book by Dr. James Doty. It's called Into the Magic Shop, and he is a neurosurgeon, and he wrote this amazing book about his life. What happened was that he came from a very underprivileged home in California, and his father was an alcoholic, and his mother was extremely depressed and suicidal, and he really didn't have a lot going for him. He was riding on his bike, and he stumbled into a magic shop because he loved magic tricks, and he met this woman who was like the mother, like this grandmother type of the owner of the magic shop, and she saw, I guess, in him something that he needed a mentor, and she said, if you come here every day for the 6 weeks while I'm here in the summer, I will teach you some really cool real magic tricks that you can really use for your life. And so she actually taught him the power of mindfulness techniques and how you can really manifest your dreams and desires by learning how to relax, how to do certain kinds of meditations of relaxation, and also how to create a vision for what you really want in your life and how to actually get there. And so she taught him how to write visions of your desires. What do you really, really want? And one of the things he wrote was that he wanted to be a doctor. And this is when he was 10 years old. And he wrote it, and he wrote these 10 things that he wanted, and he read them every single day. And this book is fascinating how he actually became a doctor and a very wealthy multimillionaire. So what we learn is that, I think actually, Devora, you said this to me when we were talking earlier, that the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and dreaming. So if we can create a vision for what we really want, the brain will actually take you there. And you will start looking for opportunities. That's what happened to this doctor, actually. He was sitting next to this girl in school, and 12th grade, and she goes, where are you going to college? No, I think he said, what are you doing? She says, I'm filling out my college applications. No one in his family had ever gone to college. So he said to her, she said, oh, where are you going to college? She goes, oh, funny, I'm going to go to apply to the same one. And she goes, that's great. I have an extra set of copies of the application to fill out. Would you like it? I mean, he didn't even know you were supposed to fill out an application. So that's how he filled out the application, sent it in, and ended up, it's just interesting. Because when you have a vision for what you want, you start noticing opportunities. So just one more thing that I wanted to share, and then Pinney's going to come in and say something about triggers. But I wanted to talk about how I lead retreats with women, and we make vision boards. And it's actually a really fun, crafty, artsy project, but you go through magazines and you cut out things that you like. You don't even know why. Just whatever you like, you're drawn to, you're attracted to, you cut it out, and then you glue it down on this poster. And I've done this with women, and a year later they come back to me and they say, that vision board we did, I had it in my bedroom, I was, near my bed, and by the way, half the things on my board have already come true. So this is not a joke. This is really not a joke. I mean, this is real. So I wanted to say that this is from Torah, that we know these concepts, and I'm going to just tell you a couple of my favorite psukim, and that is from the Hodu Tefillah in Shachris, Harshet Picha V'Yamalehu, which translates as, open wide your mouth, Rashi says, state all your desires, and I shall grant them. It's actually a Jewish concept to really figure out what do you desire. Sometimes that word scares us. We're not used to wanting anything. Sometimes when we were children, our parents said, or whatever, we were educated in a way of like, what did you want? Want, don't want. But the truth is, it's a Jewish concept that we really are meant to be in touch with what we want, because the Baal Shem Tov says that your desires might be an area where you're meant to elevate. So I think, that's one of my favorite psukim around creating a vision. So that's enough about the why we do this, and now we're going to talk about how. So we were going to now take time to explain to you what I was thinking to do, because we're not in the classroom like face-to-face, and so I was thinking it would be ideal for us to explain the how of how to create a relationship vision. First, we're going to explain the steps in a succinct manner, like we're going to explain it short and quick, and then we're going to go into what will help enhance this and why these things are important and how to do them each step. But we want to first create the picture and the vision so you can actually see it and know it right now. It's not complicated. So the first step of making a relationship vision is to actually take some time to be in a relaxed state, in my opinion. Close your eyes, and for 5 minutes or more, just imagine what your ideal relationship would really look like. And when we teach this in class, everybody just takes time. We close our eyes, and I walk them through this visualization, and we ask the couples to. And so if you're listening to this right now being recorded, you could close your eyes and just ask yourself, what would my ideal relationship look like? How would you feel? What would you be doing? Do you dream of laughing often, feeling connected, feeling relaxed? Perhaps you have a dream of sharing joint activities that you both find meaningful together. So dreaming helps us to create, and if we can create, we can live these dreams of ours. So it all really begins with a dream. So the first step would be to take time to, as much time as you need. I mean, you waited this long. If you want a little longer, just take some time, see it in your mind's eye. Step 2 would be to each person separately will now write in a notebook or in the handout, as you see here, some statements and sentences, a number of sentences, 5, 10, 20, however many, and you write down each, without talking to the other person, write down what you dream of for your marriage. So an example might be, we have fun together, we're loving parents, we trust each other, we settle our differences peacefully. Those are some examples. The next step, so I'm going to go over that more in a minute, and then the next step would be to now share your statements with each other. So husband and wife are going to share their statements with each other, and then you're going to do another sheet of paper where it's called the joint vision, where you will now co-create a vision of the things that you've all agreed upon, the two of you have agreed upon, and you actually, when you share your vision, you're going to check all your similarities and the things that you did have different. You leave them on the side for now, and then you are going to make a vision together with all the ones that you both liked and agreed upon. And the ones that you didn't, you leave aside and you revisit it later. Okay, that's the short version of it. Now I want to go into the more details of it.
As you're writing the relationship vision separately, you want to use positive words. Okay, you don't want to write, we don't fight. You want to write, we settle our differences peacefully. And there is a reason for that as well.
I think, like, if you Google no football, what comes up? Football. So the brain, if they hear don't fight, the brain kind of hears fight.
Exactly.
So we don't want to write that
or
focus on that. Because they say whatever you focus on, that's where it increases. So.
And also, you want to write it in the present tense. You don't want to write it in the past that we used to do this, or even in the future that I would like to do this. But rather write it in a present tense, even if you're perhaps not even there yet. But it's just a way of processing this. That again, that they've done studies in the brain that this is a very effective way of getting you to where you want to get to. So you write all of these things down, and sometimes you might notice in our situation when we did this for the first time, Helena had about 30 items that she wrote, and it took her all of about 45 seconds, and I struggled to get 5 in about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
And it doesn't, I mean, again, everybody's different, and there's no one right way. But very often in a relationship, you have what we would call the maximizer and the minimizer, the one who maximizes things, the one who is in touch with their needs exactly, and has a lot. And then you have the minimizer who also has a lot of needs, but just has no clue that they have those needs. And so they may write just a few items. But the neat thing is that when you get to the next step, which is sharing the vision, you can write down things that, the minimizer, the one who only wrote 5 things, so I ended up writing down a whole bunch of other things when Helana shared her vision, things that I hadn't thought of or for whatever reason didn't put down. Again, you can begin to co-create your relationship vision.
Something interesting is that sometimes you assume things. You make assumptions. Like, let's say you've had a couple has had an argument. I'm not going to call it a fight. An argument about a certain topic. How much time you spend together, and in their vision, the spouse is assuming that the other person is not going to write anything about that, and they might be very pleasantly surprised to see that they actually do want time together and spending quality time together, or to go on vacation together, even though they may have had an argument about that, because now we're giving space to really allow each person to dream of their ideal situation. Some of the things we talked about that might get in the way of the dialogue. Okay, so we teach Imago therapy, and the foundation of Imago, I-M-A-G-O, Imago therapy, is the Imago Dialogue. And we've taught this at a previous call for Adai, but we felt that it's very important to explain it here, because in order for this vision to come out successfully, it needs to be done with a good way of listening to each other, because this topic could actually trigger the couple. Do you want to explain what a trigger is?
So a trigger is, let's face it, whenever we're doing something important, the Satan is always looking for an opportunity to compromise it and to damage it. And yeah, so the triggers is sort of what we call the fight, flight, or freeze.
Something I forgot to mention in the steps of the dialogue is, because, as Pinney explained, the Satan likes to mix in, when we teach this to couples, we actually take time to invite each person to say a kapitel of Tehillim and or their own personal prayer, their own personal tefillah, to invite Hashem into this process, because this is a kind of touchy area where there may be differences between what one spouse wants and the other, and we really want to invite Hashem in to help us bench this couple. And as Pinney said, something like to mix in when there's a huge potential for holiness and for success. So we would invite the couple to say a kapitel of Tehillim, sometimes tefillah, before they even go ahead and start reading their vision statements to each other. When you do the relationship vision, there might be an opportunity where a spouse may get upset. It actually might bring out some sensitive subjects. If one person writes about something they really want and the other person didn't write that, it could cause a trigger. And in psychology, this is a very known, popular subject, and I'm just going to explain it quickly here, but it's very good information to have just in life. If you get triggered, which means you have a feeling of fight, flight, or freeze, which means you could have this with a coworker, with your boss, with your sibling, with your child, with your parent, with your spouse. If you feel upset, you feel conflict, something bothers you about what they said or did, different people react to conflict differently. Some people fight back by yelling or giving a really nasty facial expression or sarcastic comment. Another person may flight, which means want to run away or go into their shell or close the door and be quiet. And some people freeze. They literally don't know. They're just like a deer in the headlights. So if you find yourself feeling these ways while you're doing the vision, it's a signal for you to know that right now you're safe. You're just talking to your husband, wife. Could be that you're upset. Some other thing that happened to you in your life. 10% happened now. 90% happened before this. But it's just something for you to be aware of, and you can find ways to calm yourself down. Like you could breathe. You could take a break for a minute and come right back. Go to the restroom for a minute. You could take a walk if you need to take a break. But it just might be breathing would be helpful. So that's what a trigger is.
So that's why, really, when you are sharing your vision with your spouse, it's really important that you're doing it in a way that is safe and that creates connection. And like Helana said, that's why we want to avoid saying things in a way that triggers someone and then can, God forbid, really undermine the entire process that you're trying to create together. So the main thing in this session, as far as the dialogue is concerned, is something that we call mirroring. It's a method of communication in a way that both people can feel comfortable and hopefully continue to feel connected. And so after your Tehillim or your Tefillah, whatever it is that you do, asking Hashem to help, that this experience should help bring you closer, you begin to share your vision. And the vision should begin with an I statement. All of them should be positive and with the I statement. So it basically says, for example, in my relationship vision, we do X. We have fun together. Yeah. In my relationship vision, we travel together, or we go out on a date once a week together, or whatever it is. And then, so that's the one who's sending. That's the I statement, okay? It's really important that when you're sharing this, that it's not with any shame, blame, or criticism. So let's say there's an issue of, let's say cleanliness in the house. And so the husband has in his vision, we have a clean house. Well, he can say it in different ways. And one way might be with sarcasm, or might be with a look, or might be with some type of emotional overtone that is said in an accusatory fashion that can, again, derail this entire process. And so we have to really stay away from shame, blame, or criticism. It's important, again, that the sender is speaking lovingly, kindly, and without analyzing your partner. You shouldn't be, whatever it is. We have a clean house because you have a problem with keeping things clean, or you're messy, or whatever it is.
Right.
No analyzing here. It's just simply what your vision is. Very, very succinct, very clear, just straight.
And what we were experiencing, like my husband and I were Pinney and I were saying, each person has a job here. The sender and the receiver each has a job. If you don't do your job right, and there's rules, if you don't follow the rules, you could undermine this process, and it could be more painful than helpful. So if the person sending says it with sarcasm, that's going to undermine. And we ask that the parties, that the spouses do this in a way like they would even at a business meeting, to try to keep neutral. Say it in a way that you would to your business partner, because we want to stay calm and we want it to be successful. So Rabbi Shimon Russell teaches a parenting course, and he talks about how we need the 4 S's in parenting, which is safety, security, to be seen, and soothing. And I really believe you need that in a marriage. You want safety, which is emotional connection and safety. To be seen as an individual and a separate entity. You're not the same person, and you're allowed to have and meant to have, for a healthy relationship, really separate, celebrate each other's differences, which is not easy to do, but you can get there. Safety, security, seen, and soothing. So say this in a way that's soothing. So that's the sender. Use I statements.
The receiver, that's the person who's listening to what the sender is saying. The first thing is we have to remove our yeshus, our ego, and we have to truly listen. As we just referencing the previous Adai session that we had the good fortune to speak at. It is so important that when we listen, we truly hear what the person is saying. You hear there's a mimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe about Haskei Shema Yisrael, be quiet and listen. Israel is a pasuk. In other words, very often, and you might notice this in your own conversations with people, very often when there's a group of people talking, people are just waiting for the next person, for the person who's talking to stop so they can share what they want to say. But they're not really listening and not really hearing what the person is saying. And we don't want to do that. We really want to hear what our husband or wife is saying. And so we have to get rid of the yeshus. We have to get rid of the ego.
Something really interesting about the dialogue, the Imago Dialogue, and the mirroring is that when the person says their statement, and you know they have 10 statements, you can see them there, right? So let's say I'm starting and I am the sender, and I say, in my relationship vision, we travel together often.
And so I, as the receiver, then say, so what I hear you saying is that in your relationship vision, we travel often together. And then I say, did I get that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
Right, and that's the magic words, because seldom do we have our spouse say, is there more? Because time is probably the greatest commodity that we have. Time is, worth more than money in some ways. We don't always. I remember teaching this in Crown Heights, and someone was like, I don't have time for this. And it was like a 10-minute dialogue. I said, well, if you don't have time for this, then what kind of marriage do you want to have? So we want to make time. And by saying, is there more, we're saying, I have time for you. I want to know your thoughts. I want to listen to you. I want to hear about your world. And it's very healing and very connecting. And once, there's no more, after you ask, is there more? Okay, yes, there's more. Because I'll give another example. In my relationship vision, we have a light-filled Hasidic home.
So what I hear you saying is that in your relationship vision, we have a light-filled Hasidic home. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
Yes. In my relationship vision, we laugh a lot together.
So what I hear you saying is that in your relationship vision, we laugh a lot together. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
Okay, so that's how it goes.
I think some of the other things to be aware of is that when we're doing this, we have to be careful that this is done in a way that is not manipulative in any way, shape, or form. So we cannot force our spouse to write something down that we wrote just because because we feel it's really, really important. We have to be willing and able to suspend that and say, right now, she or he is not ready for this, and that's on a different list that we will continue to revisit from time to time. But now let's at least take the things that we have in common and really develop them.
So just going back to being more specific on the how, when you're comparing your list, so let's say Pinney was listening to me, I did all my 30 visions that I wanted, and then we would switch. It would be your turn, and I would mirror you.
Right.
And you would tell me all of your things on your list. And then after we're done, we can pause for a minute, take a break, and then we come back together and we say, okay, now we're going to compare our lists. When all the items have been read and mirrored accurately, we compare the two lists. Whenever there are some similarities, you put a check in the column labeled similarities next to the items that you and your spouse both listed or something similar to. It doesn't matter if you use different words. If it was a general idea, you put a check mark next to it. And if your spouse mentioned anything you agree with, but you didn't, and you don't object to it, but you didn't think of it yourself, you should add it to your own list as you're listening. Now you're just taking time to add it to your own list. And if your spouse wrote items which you do not agree with, you're really not meant to discuss them at this time. You're meant to draw a line and write them down at the bottom of your list and look at it again in the future. Then there's another sheet. You have a handout called Our Relationship Vision, and now you could type this up or write it out, but you should each have a copy of your joint relationship vision. We personally believe that it would be great to read every day. If you don't have anyone in your home that you're afraid to read it, you could tape it up in the bathroom, on the kitchen refrigerator. You can keep it in your car. You can I think Pinney put it in a fill-in bag. You can put it inside your sitter, whatever you want to do. The more you read it, the more often you see it and read it, the more you're going to be able to create it. It is very important to revisit it because things change in life. And what you wanted first year of marriage, you might change 10 years later. So it might be some good idea maybe on your wedding anniversary to revisit it, or maybe that week of your wedding anniversary to revisit it and maybe revise it.
Helana, what was more of your 30 things, just to give some people some prompts of areas to think about?
You might want to think of healthy living, like what do you want to exercise together, or we eat healthy in our home? We choose healthy foods. How you want we parent together, or we're on the same page. This vision, though, is more about your own relationship, like how often you want to have intimacy. Some people have on their list. How they want to deal with money could be on this. But in a general sense, it's not meant to be very, very specific. It can have some specifics. Like I know I've seen some visions where couples have wrote, we have intimacy when we're not nida, but when we're allowed, we're intimate twice a week or 3 times a week, something like that. I mean, that's obviously very private, so they may want to display that on their kitchen refrigerator. But these are very important topics. We share housekeeping. If they want to be both involved with the running of the household and the cleaning of the house, then that could be on their list. Most of it is about how the husband and wife relate to each other, but it is also about the atmosphere of the home and what kind of parents they want to be. But it's not a parenting vision, but that definitely could be on the list. Also how you relate to each other instead of we don't fight, we settle our differences peacefully.
It could also be how we are in social settings. When we go to a party. I mean, maybe it's getting too specific. Maybe this is too specific, but, we make sure that we check in with each other or, things like that. I mean, it could be anything where
we take each other's needs into consideration.
Yeah, exactly.
But you might also want to have something like we are healthy individually and healthy as a couple. We have healthy independence and healthy interdependence. That could be on there. I mean, really the sky's the limit. But if it's very, very specific, I would say that would be more in the category of another topic that we want to teach next time, which is behavior change requests. And that really leads into from the vision. So if you see that there's something that's not right now happening in your marriage that you really want, that would go into the behavior change request tool that we have in our toolbox that we teach. And I can mention it now if you want. It's just to give you a chance or a taste to know what's coming next.
Yes, but I just want to get to that. But earlier you said that there would be some things that you put on the side because it's not on both sides. So talk to that a little bit about what do you do with those things that are on the side?
Okay, I think that's a really important point, and I forgot to say it, but we were talking about it might be very upsetting if you have 5 things on the list that your spouse doesn't want to put on the list. And there's a challenge. Why don't you explain the challenge that, like, some husbands want to put everything on the list?
Yeah, one of the things that we found is that Helena wanted, there were various things, and I said, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. And then there were just so many things, and for various reasons.
You said yes to everything.
I said yes to pretty much everything, and I didn't do much of it.
Well, no, that was more actually. That
was more the behavior.
That was you actually.
Scratch that part.
Oh, never mind. He's saying that on the wrong tool. Okay, so because I think you did like the vision. See, there's a big difference between a vision is broad, and action steps are different. So whereas Pinney might agree that we spend a lot of quality time together, that might be on our vision. In actuality, he might get so busy with the shlichus that he might forget to check in with me. So that would come in the category of how to make a request, how I could ask him to find me when he comes home, and we're going to do that next time. But the thing is, this could be very upsetting to the spouse when the one doesn't have or wants to put on the list. So the danger is that one person might say yes to everything and put it on, but then would feel resentful. And that's going to just kick the can down the road, because if you say yes to everything and you don't really mean it, you're really not being authentic, and it just comes back to bite you later. And so it's a question if you want to deal with it now or deal with it later. And when you deal with it later, it usually gets bigger. So we highly recommend that you don't say yes to everything if you know you're going to be upset and you're going to be resentful. Like there's some really touchy subjects here. I don't know. If one spouse wants no TV in the house, and, nowadays we have it on our computer. So if someone says, we only watch Jewish things, and the other person doesn't want that, it could get very touchy. You can't force somebody to do anything, but it's very important, and this is where mashpia would come in. That Dr. James Dottie, what I loved about his book also is that, well, first of all, Trachtot V'Zayin I saw in his book, and also the idea of having a mentor. So having mashpia and a rav is very, very, very helpful. When you get to a sticky point, you can also hire a coach. We're here. That's what we do. So it could get sticky, and it's really great if you could just say, you know what, I'm going to honor my spouse and know that we're two different people. And this is a quote that I got from Rabbi Jacobson. He calls it the I, it, and thou. I actually think he got this from someone else. But do I only see my spouse as there to please me, and I'll do this if they do that? Or is everything always about me? Or can I see my spouse as a completely different person and having different needs and appreciating that we're two different separate people and that it's going to be interesting because we're so different? Like, for example, in our marriage, I might be more on time usually for certain things.
Yes.
Okay. But I'm learning to enjoy, having more calm and spontaneous, and to know, so if we're 5 minutes late, nothing's going to happen. Sometimes Pinney's more on time than I am in other areas. So being able to, when each person becomes a little more like the other, that's where the beauty occurs. If somebody's always on time and someone's always late, well, the person that's always late can learn how to be more on time. The person that's rigidly on time can learn how to relax and have some more spontaneity. So
lighten up.
Right. So there is some, I don't want to say the word danger, but there are some roadblocks that could get in the way of a vision. And if you find that it's really triggering or really upsetting one of you, it would be great to get someone to help you do it together or teach you the Imago skills. I mean, we have, 6 chapters in this curriculum that we teach couples that is transformational for their marriage and their relationship, and I wish every young couple would take these. I mean, I wish I had it. I had 10 years. We had 10 years without this, and we really suffered for 10 years. I mean, we had a good marriage, but we didn't know how to fight fair. We didn't know how to deal with conflict, and this helped us. So if you're finding that it's challenging, you could really reach out. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Just, say, I want to get some help with how to do this. But it's very beautiful. It can be really great if you don't get upset if the person doesn't have something on your list. Or you're allowed to be upset, but not to really, act out on that. But
right.
Do you have anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay, so if there's any other questions.
I think we have a good understanding of what the vision statement is and how to work through to create one and how to co-create it together. So I think that this is a nice way to end this first session. And we'll look forward to part 2.